Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy. This right here is the Crkt CEO Compact, which I've just realized has a little bit of stuff on the blade from carrying it. Nonetheless, it's the CEO Compact, and let's talk about it. But first off, before I go any further, I got to let you know that this guy was sent to me directly by Crkt. They reached out to me, said, "Hey Nick, we got a new knife coming along. We've got a higher end version. Are you interested in checking it out?" I said, "Absolutely, I am." But as always, told them to talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. Might be junk, might be gem. They might still send it along. Nonetheless, we do have to assume this is the very best quality controlled one of these guys ever, and I'm doing my very best not to let that affect the nature or the quality of my review. Next thing, let's do some size comparison real quick. What we're going to see here is this is not a particularly large knife. Here it is up against the Spyderco Delica. What we're going to see here is that in terms of sharpened blade length, we're actually not very different from the Delica, but in terms of overall blade length, the Delica is longer, and it is much, much smaller than the Delica, though. Particularly when closed, this guy is, well, compact, as you might expect, right? This guy fits entirely within the footprint of the Delica, and in terms of thickness, is very slightly thicker than the Delica, but only in the one little area, so to speak. Here it is against the Spyderco PM2, which makes this guy look positively compact by comparison, I suppose. And then here it is against the Ontario Rat number 2 in D2 steel. And so what we see here is, yeah, it's a pretty small knife, as you might imagine, and do it for the name. So there you go. Next thing, let's go ahead and talk about the fact that this right here, this is an upgraded model. This particular version is an S35 VN blade steel and a marbled carbon fiber, complete with a bronzed inner liner sort of situation here. Well, maybe coppered. Look, it's steel is what the metal is here, but it looks vaguely coppery, golden, bronzy, something like that. So there is that. This particular model is $115, although the base model is $45, and this model is currently sold out, but I'm hearing that more are coming, and it is available only through CRKT's online store. So there is that. The base model, like I said, is $45, comes with a polymer handle, and we're going to talk about the CEO more generally, even though this is the higher-end upgraded version. Well, CEO Compact, that is, more generally. So let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this little interesting knife. So on the good side, to start with, this has a very compact size, as the name would imply, right? This is a compact knife. And in fact, it comes in, if you measure the blade up here, we are coming in under 2.75 inches, which is going to be good for a lot of knife laws around the country here, and makes this a very non-threatening knife, right? And by the way, I'm measuring it sort of as uncharitably as you can, with the ruler actually slightly under the scale, figuring that, you know, if the cop doesn't like you, that's where they're going to measure, and just about 7 centimeters there. So this is a very compact knife, 100%. And so that can be a very nice thing, and frankly, it can be a nice thing, sort of generally speaking, for the carry. So it also has an ambidextrous clip. What we see here is that the clip actually attaches right here. Here, let me close the blade so I don't stab my table. Well, the clip goes up here, and you can actually swap it around to the other side with no penalty, right? There's no problem doing so. It is pretty straightforward, and so that's actually a nice little detail. This means that lefties and righties are going to have a very similar carry experience, even if the liner lock itself is constructed for the righties there. But because the flipper tab on the back there, it is more ambi than many knives. Next thing, the action on this guy is nice. This is, I dropped that one just because, yeah, a little fine motor involved here, but this is an unassisted knife. If I kind of put my finger here, this fires out very, very reliably, but there is no spring to it at any point, right? This is completely unassisted, which is a beautiful thing. I love that they went there here. And it is a very snappy action. It is very reliable. It is relatively smooth. It's not like, oh my God, fall shutty, but at the same time, you know, it doesn't necessarily need to be. And with a blade this light, you don't necessarily expect that. But it has a very nice detent. They really nailed the action here. And I appreciate that they went with a great unassisted action here. They got the detent right. This is good. So the action here is very nice. Next thing, the blade on this guy. So this particular one, as I said, is S35 VN. The base model is 1.4116 steel. And the thing is, obviously S35 is good to go. But the grind on this guy is quite nice. You see it comes down to a nice thin edge here. And even though this is a relatively sort of short grind, because the blade itself is relatively short, I mean, seriously, we're less than half an inch total blade height here. It does come down to a reasonably thin edge. They've done a nice job grinding this out here. So that is a very nice thing. Next thing, this version here, This looks pretty good, right? With the marbled carbon fiber, with the little bit of kind of coppery steel looking liners, that looks great. With a little bit of internal milling here, well, internal holes to lighten things up. You can see those lightning holes on the inside there. That's a nice thing. And the black clip on here, this just looks like a very classy knife to me. It almost looks like not a knife. It looks like a lighter or something else like that, right? If it weren't for the flipper tab sticking up, I would have very little idea what this was until, oh, it's a pocket knife. And so that's a very nice thing. And so I think this is good. And I also like seeing them producing variants that are made with higher end materials. Like I said, there is the lower end version, which is 14116 steel and kind of a gray glass nylon polymer sort of handle. But I like seeing them doing these versions with upgraded materials. And if they do this regularly, I think it'll give them a very good chance of helping them maintain relevance both in the blister pack world as well as in the collector world, right? I can see a lot of people who might like the design of the knife and might be interested in this, but who might not be interested in 14116 steel, things like that. So that's nice. I'd like to see this, and I hope they do it more often, and I hope they do it through their normal distribution channels as well. Then finally, on the good side, this has a very slim profile. This guy has no blade visible when closed. It looks like a lighter or something, right? And it's a very neat design, and it's another example of CRKT's main strength being the work of their designers. The thing that puts CRKT on the map, so to speak, still in 2022 is the fact that they have great designers, like in this case Richard Rogers, who are able to do really, really nice work and create something that is unique and different and off the beaten path, as opposed to yet another, oh yeah, you can make a liner lock that's shaped like that too, right? So I appreciate this very, very much. And so to me, all that is the good is that it's got a nice profile. I like seeing the variants with higher materials. This version does look great. The nice blade is, well ground, and that's great. With a nice action, an ambi clip, and a compact size. On the great side to me, actually, I gotta say the compactness is the win for me, because it is very, very, very carryable as a result. This guy has a very deep carry clip. So what that means is that in practice, this guy is going to be sticking out of your pocket, and it will look something like this. Right? This is very, very, very unassuming. People could look at your shirt pocket even. And this is very carryable even in a shirt pocket, by the way. And they could look at this and go, oh, that must be a pen. Oh, that must be I don't know, some other kind of thing. But it doesn't read like, oh my God, knife. They didn't like billboard it or anything like that. And this is also something that, you could very easily carry in the little coin pocket, key pocket of your jeans, right? This is a very compact sort of thing. This is truly a knife that is, I think, fit for the CEO carry, because it is very classy looking, but also very compact, very easy to carry, and very, very attractive. So to me, that is absolutely what is the great. So on the bad side, first off, this isn't bad. It's just sort of a thing. This would have been a neat front flipper, right? Because they've already kind of got the space for it. Just put up the little tab there and then, oh, I think that could have been great. So I would have liked that. And I think it would have made the knife a little bit cleaner, both open and closed. So that's a little detail, but not a big deal. On the bigger deal front, this is the compact version, the budget version that is 1.4116 steel at $45. Now, 14116 is a steel that is in the AUS 8 440 8CR category, right? It is a steel that I look at it and I go, this had better be really cheap. And $45 ain't really cheap enough for that, right? And now I get it. At some level, it's not a hard use knife. It's not a knife that you're going to use for extended periods of time, doing a lot of cutting day in and day out. But at the same time, and so you're probably not going to mind if you have to sharpen it regularly because you're not going to use it that regularly. But dude, really, CRKT? I mean, seriously, somebody at CRKT must own stock in outdated steel foundries. I mean, that's a joke, of course, but it feels real some days. And of all the corners to cut on a pocket knife, you choose the blade, the most important part. And the thing is, some people might say, well, that's just the thing is, the competition isn't cutting this corner at these price points, right? So I hope that somebody on their product team is desperately shaking an accountant someplace, trying to get them to snap out of it and move to better steels before the music stops. Because this is not something I think that's going to be sustainable in the grand scheme. The S35VN here is great, but at the same time, having that budget model in that kind of steel, like, no, I'm sorry. You're not going to be able to get away with that for long, and I don't think you're able to get away with it now. So that's not a great thing. I really hope that they up their game substantially there. Next thing, this particular model here, the higher-end version, is a CRKT site exclusive. This means that it is being sold at the generally fake MSRP price rather than the discounted real map price, which I think would then make this the real price because it's the only price it's available. Look, map needs to die, but more importantly, $115 is the price they're selling it for. And if that were the fake price and it was really being sold for $85, that would be, frankly, about right. That would feel like a really nice value. But this is only available at the $115. That's maybe a little on the high side, right? It's steel liners, it's S35 VN, it's marbled carbon fiber. Like, it looks nice, and I can totally see people paying for it if they really like this particular design, if they really want this form factor. I can see people happily buying it, but at the same time, it's not delivering amazing value, right? If this guy were at the $80, map sort of price or $85, then this would be absolutely easy to recommend, but a little bit extra snuck in there. And so I really hope that, unfortunately, the price is what takes this out of gem territory in this model right here. It's not a go out and buy it knife, but it's an if you love it, yeah, you'll probably be fine with it kind of thing. Next thing, you're trying to make a super classy knife, and that's great, but then putting all of this various writing on the blade kind of classes the joint down a little bit, right? I mean, yes, it's a Rogers design, but did you really need all of this on there? No, you didn't. And, the logo, okay, sure, but you could have made that a little smaller, more subtle, right? They are sort of a company making a fancy carry knife, but using the blueprint for a non-fancy carry knife. And so I feel like that's an area where they could do some improvement here. Next thing, this is pocket pecking, albeit only very, very slightly, but this little guy is going to be pecking on whatever's in your pocket all day long. Looks like a very weird little bird, this one. That's for sure. And it is a very fine motor skill requiring knife. What I mean by that is it's a little bit fiddly. Part of this is actually because the balance is a little strange, right? The balance of this knife is actually all the way back here. And they've done some lightning holes in the handle to try and make it a little bit better, but it just ends up handling very strangely. I find myself in manipulating and using this having a little bit more trouble than I do with most knives just because of that form factor to it. This is a knife that I really would only recommend to somebody with very, with strong dexterity. And I mean at the level that I think your average human has, rather than something, if you got a problem with that, this is absolutely not where I would send you. And then finally on the bad side, and absolutely the worst thing about this model, more generally speaking, is that the ergonomics are not great. And more specifically, they're not great in this back area here because you have a lot of corners, right? A lot of knives will kind of come to a rounded back part, right? The back of it rounds off a little bit. That's a little easier for your hand. But if you grip onto this guy, not only do you have the clip pressing into your hand, but you got this corner here, this corner here, this corner here. And it just ultimately ends up not super comfortable in the hand for real heavy-duty cutting, right? You get all kinds of hot spots all over this guy. Now look, this is a once-in-a-while knife. This is kind of the definition of a fancy carry piece. There's a pretty good chance that if you're carrying this guy in your suit coat pocket, so to speak, that you're probably not going to be breaking down 50 feet of cardboard. Yet at the same time, dude, I don't know. The ergos here are just not amazing. And this is absolutely not a knife I would reach for on a day when I knew I was going to be doing substantial cutting. This is a knife that is much better for carrying than it is for using, and that's fine. That's a trade-off you're more than welcome to make, and I think for a lot of people that would be an absolutely good-to-go trade-off. It's there when you need it, and it is quite effective when you need it. It is a fine cutting tool, but it's just not super comfortable in the hand as you're doing that. So this is an occasional use knife rather than something where you could very easily use it all day and be very happy about that fact. So, to me, all of that is the bad. The ergos are kind of pointy and a little bit not so great. It is a very fine motor skill requiring knife to manipulate, even like lock bar access, things like that. It is pocket pecking very, very slightly. The blade writing really makes this thing less classy. 115 feels a little bit high for this edition, and it's a CRKT site exclusive, and then the base model in 14116 is just not what CRKT needs to be doing anymore. It's not what anyone needs to be doing in the industry. On the ugly front, look, the 14116 is almost there, but the price is just like, that's not good, but it's, I don't know, that could live there, but for at the very, very least, The final conclusion, this guy is a design knife. This is a knife where you only care about it if you care about the design. And don't get me wrong, there's good here, right? Because it does have that compact size, the ambidextrous clip, a nice action, and a very nice blade grind, nice materials, a slim profile, and a very, very compact and carryable format, right? This is a knife that is very, very easy to just carry, and that can be a great thing, especially if you are wearing a suit. If you're in a situation where you might not be able to carry something huge, this could very easily work. The base steel, I'll be honest, is pretty unimpressive for the price tag. The model here is a CRKT site exclusive. It's not super impressive in terms of value. There's a lot of writing on the blade. It does have a very small little pocket pecker. It is kind of requires a little bit of fine motor skill, especially with the weird balance, and the ergos on it are very kind of pointy. I'm making this a knife that's comfortable enough briefly, but is not a long-term use sort of tool, right? Ultimately, this is kind of a tough call for me because this model itself is in a lot of ways very knife. This is indeed very knife. I would like to assure you, this knife, very knife. But it's very nice in a lot of ways, but the design is ultimately the thing that is most interesting here. This is another instance of design sells knife out of CRKT, which isn't, by the way, a bad thing. They are living proof that unique designs can mean more than a so-so value proposition, at least to folks who are sensitive to design like myself. If you're just looking for absolute value and you really don't care what it looks like or all of the, then okay, whatever. But ultimately, it comes down to the design. If you like the design, consider the knife. If you don't, there is nothing functional enough here to be worth your while, right? Unless you absolutely needed something with this particular very slim and compact carry footprint, which could be a functional thing, there's really not that much going on here that makes me go like, oh yeah, this is your daily carry knife, even if you're not digging. No, this is a design sort of thing, right? As to which version you should get, I honestly think that the higher-end version, Nick Shabazz recommends the higher-end version. What a shock. But I think this is going to be the better choice for most. Because, look, you're buying this as a small, compact carry knife that is designed to be classy. And the high-end model, that is markedly more fancy and markedly more classy, right? With the marbled carbon fiber, with that, this is a knife that actually looks compellingly like what is historically called a gentleman's folder, right? It is a classy little carry piece. And that's nice. And the fact that you also then get a modern pocket knife steel, I feel like your average CEO is definitely going to go with this version. And I think it's really good that they made this version. Because the original, because the base model is just sort of like, I don't know. If you very rarely need something fancy, so you don't want to spend much money on it, or if you need something super compact for rare use, then maybe that low-end version might be interesting, but you have to either love resharpening or at least be willing to do it a lot. Because, yeah, like I said, they just cheaped out there. It's kind of a shame we have to make the choice. But final conclusion, I think this model is a very nice little kind of classy carry knife, very much so. You have to love the design, and the value I don't feel like is quite there for gem status. At $80, oh yeah, a gem, but not quite. But it's not the kind of knife you'd want to use if you're using your knife all day, every day. And if you're looking, though, for a classy carry option, you're willing to pay the price for the design, then you could make a compact with this little guy. Okay, anyways, hope this has been interesting to you and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.